Right, morning. Welcome everybody. As I was saying, beautiful thunderstorm outside. Yeah, rain pelting down. And yeah, as Trevor Carty says, me, WIIFM. So what's in it for me? Is it about you? Is it about me? I don't know. I think it's all about me. Lee, what about you?
I love your intros, Ivan. Thank you. uh, so, yeah, so the topic is it about me? What's in it for me? Or is it about you? Is it about what we give? Is what we get out of life about what we give and give to others? Or is it about me and what I need to get out of life? And so in the course of these chats, I have spoken about the fact that in my early 40s, I went through 2 years of burnout. And in those days, if somebody asked me, or if I thought about it for myself, I would have said, the reason for my burnout is that I gave too much. I gave more to others than the self-care that I needed to give to myself. And certainly there was elements of that. Burnout, in my experience, is something that is complex and has many contributing factors. But as I've reflected on it over the years, I've also realized that much of the things that I was doing that related to my burnout was because of what I wanted. I needed to be needed. I felt compelled to please other people. I wanted to be acknowledged. I wanted to prove myself. So there was a lot of eyes in there. and so I've realized that the choices that I was making that I thought were for others was actually self-serving. And it, came back to bite me. And my body and mind and spirit suffered as a result. So I've never been in burnout again. And I think it's only because I did the work of acknowledging some of those things, as well as a lot of lifestyle changes. I've also realized, and I look back over my life and I think, so I can only speak for myself, right? So have there been times, the question I ask myself, so is it therefore about me, and is my self-care, acknowledging that my self-care is important enough that I need to do that well enough so that I can live my life and to contribute in the way that I want to, rather than I feel I have to. But there've been a few occasions in my life where who I am and what I need has genuinely been put on the back burner for the sake of others. And that is not in any sort of self-sacrificing way, but because the need of the other person and my love for them was greater than me. And the first example is, and Steve, you'll identify with this, is when I had my first kid and then my second kid. And especially, and Ed mentioned this earlier, if you're a breastfeeding mom, you're it. You can't delegate that particular job. And so if your child is hungry, it doesn't matter how you're feeling or where you are, or that's what you do. So that is a moment where you put your life and your feelings and what you think and how you feel in a particular way on just behind you for the sake of somebody else. I experienced that again on the opposite end of the scale when my dad was dying and he was living with us. And there were times when he either needed to be fed, or he needed to be rushed to hospital for some emergency, or he was in hospital, and everything else grinds to a halt, because that person that you love and that you have this sense of responsibility for and care for, they take priority. So those are my thoughts around who comes first and when and how. So I'd love to hear what you think.
Thanks, Lee. Yeah, it gets deeply personal, doesn't it? And I think we have to find the balance where we can, you know, and sometimes it's not easy. So my apologies for disappearing in and out. I was just rushing off and classing a few windows because it's pelting down outside here. But yeah, we'll pick it up from there. So Ed, I think let's get across to you next.
Yeah, I can really hear that storm in the background. It's quite dramatic, isn't it? Yeah, very interesting what you said, Lee, about you felt it was giving to others that was causing you a problem, and actually it was yourself. I think there's a saying, you can't pour from an empty jug. But I think the thing is, how do we keep the jug topped up? And the one thing, the great thing about being a modern man or a modern woman is that we come with a set of instruction manuals, although very few of us ever read them. It's a kind of human trait, isn't it? We never read the manual, except maybe people like Ivan. And the answers are there. And in Proverbs, it says, one gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what he should give and only suffers want. Whoever brings blessings will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered. And there's another bit in Luke which says, give and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. And I thought that was quite true, because when my marriage broke up, I was in bits. I was a complete and utter mess. But my daughter chose to live with me, and she needed me to look after her and to nurture her and make sure she was okay. And that really helped me, because by giving to her, I filled myself up, and it helped me through that phase. But I do think there are times when you need to put yourself first. You need a little bit of space. I often say to runners who are struggling to get a run in, and it's particularly women, you know, you need that time, that space. If you want to be a really good mother, you want to be a really good mother. And actually, by going out running, clearing your head, just having a bit of me time, you won't shout at your kids. You'll have more energy. You'll be able to give more. So occasionally, I think we have to just ease back and let our jug be filled. Because if we're tipping it out so fast it can't be topped up, then we're losing. But I think really it is giving in the right way, as Lee quite rightly pointed out, is what fills us up, is what makes us. So I think it's all about giving, and give and ye shall receive.
Great, thanks, Ed. Yeah, it is interesting, you know. I mean, people talk about the more you give, more you have to give. But there is a balance still, I think, somewhere along the line. But yeah. So Trevor, what's in your jug? Is it full?
I'm going to make the assumption that it's me, because Trevor Nell's still running around unplugging stuff. But what a beautiful rain. What a beautiful rain. And you know, Ivan and the rest of us, this is such a great topic. So this morning when I got up, my regular routine is to go for a run. But that last big crack of lightning and thunder came just before I got out of bed. And I thought, do I sleep in for someone else? Or do I get up for someone else? Or do I say, to hell with this, put on my running shoes and run whether it rains or doesn't rain? And I had a great 25-12 this morning. And I got back and it hadn't started raining yet. And I thought, can you imagine if I had stayed home for someone else? I wouldn't have had my start to the day, my me time. I wouldn't have had my time to think about what I'm going to talk about this morning. I wouldn't have thought about the rest of my day. I wouldn't have thought about just starting to close the windows because this rain is going to be significant. And when I got home, I wrote on my outside board where I write my thoughts when I'm running. And those have all been washed off the board. So things you do for other people are so important, and it's not the things you do for them, it's the way that you make them feel. So they will remember the way you made them feel. So here's the thing, following Ed is so easy to be in Wisdoms, because Ed, you absolutely quoted every scripture bar one this morning. That is all about give and do and etc. And you know, every now and then you've got to just be a bit selfless, and then you've got to ask yourself, where's my cross? How do I hang myself for someone else? And it could be a dying parent or an ill child or just a friend who's having a tough time. So yeah, grateful that I don't have to be nailed to that cross. But yeah, so starts with me. If my jug is empty, I can't fill anyone. And to hell with the rain, I can run in it anyway. So I'm not stopping. Just hope I don't get hit by Trevor Nell's lightning.
Thanks, Trevor. Yeah. You can do whatever you want whenever you want, as long as you're prepared to accept the consequences, I suppose. Right, so Cecile, let's hear your thoughts.
Oops, sorry. Yeah, I'm also, why is my thing off? Sorry, yeah, there we go. Funny, when I was thinking about the topic, well, this morning when I woke up and last night a little bit, I was wondering, do I things for me or do I do things for other people? And then a line came up this weekend. We were at a family golf weekend, and one of my sister's daughter's fiance, his brother was with us, and in his drunken stupor on Saturday night, I don't know him from Adam, I met him the first time in the day, he was like, oh, you guys have got such a nice life, but well. And then the next thing he says to me, but you are too accommodating, Cecile. And I'm like, then I asked my daughter, do you think I am too accommodating? Because, I mean, when you just sit in a conversation with people and you do dinner, everyone does a braai, how can you pick up that I'm too accommodating? So I started thinking, okay, when was I too accommodating and when not? And then Lee, so I still haven't figured out how he could figure that out. But then, just as you say, for both my children, I breastfed them exclusively for 15 months and for 13 months. So neither of my kids ever drank from a bottle ever. They went straight from boob to cup. So, but to me, it was just easy. And I don't know, I didn't feel like I'm giving up anything. It was just what one has to do in that time. And then, so I'm not sure if that's for me. I think that was for me. It's ultimately for them, but it was for me. That was what I believe, what is good for me and for them. And then when I got divorced, Ed, when the kids were 10 and 13, now I've got the storm. You can hear the storm. I went through it when I didn't have any maintenance. I had a very small income. Boy, did I struggle. And I went through a stage. I worked for a company that was a stationer, and they went belly up in the time that I worked for them. So just when the sheriff came to repossess the stuff at the shop, he said to me, you can take some stuff with you. So I took 5 boxes of stationery with me, and I literally went from school to school, I walked from school to school in our area, selling pencils and little exercise books and whatever, just to keep the pot going. But when, sorry, just to backtrack once, just before I decided to actually get divorced, my husband started drinking, so I decided this is to this and no further. And that was for me and for my kids. I couldn't subject my children to having an alcoholic as a father and to that stress. Because anyone who's ever had an alcoholic person in their life, you know that the time that they are sober is more stressful than virtually than the time that they are drinking, because deep inside you watch them all the time, and the smallest little signal that you think they may drink again, the smallest signal will know, oh my word, it's starting again. So that's when I decided, no, this is tough love, I'm not doing this any longer. So that was for me, and then later when I had to sell all the stationery, that was for the kids. So so I try and do my me time. I love to bath, so I do my 10 minutes me time every night when I sit in the bath. That's my me time. So I don't have much other me time. Most of the other things, I'm doing things for other people. But maybe, Lee, it's time to sit and think, okay, the things that I do for the other people, why am I doing it for other people? Is it because, I don't know, I want something for myself? So maybe it's something to reflect upon. Yeah, that's my bit.
Thanks, Cecile. Yeah, it's a good question. You know, why do you do what you do? So, Steve, why do people do what they do?
Now I've got the big thunder, yeah.
We've been trying to figure that out for millennia, I think. So my current position would be that I think that we as human beings are deeply self-interested. And I think that's evidenced from the point of birth, and that's a survival trait. And I think that part of life is to journey away from that center of yourself as being the center of the universe. But I do think that that's in us. I think we're very self-interested. I think that the idea of altruism is, from at least the social sciences perspective, from what I can see, is empirically not true. There is no such thing as an altruist who's completely focused on other people. I think there are people that believe that, but I don't think that's the reality. But at the same time that we are deeply self-interested beings, we're also deeply social beings. And the Homo sapiens species has made it this far, not because we were bigger and stronger than everything else out there, but because we banded together and we worked together in societies and tribes, and we express that social nature. And so I think that's part of it. There's a bit of a balance between, we do have needs that we want to have met for ourselves, and we do want things for ourselves. So it is quite a lot about me. But for us to live together in productive societies, there has to be a balance between it being about me and it also being about others. And I think more mature societies will manifest that idea of individuals are allowed to get their needs met. And so we meet each other's needs, which means I don't disappear in the equation, but neither does the other. And I experienced this myself as well in terms of some burnout. And I used to think of myself as an altruistic person. But even that has some roots in the way I was brought up, and I wasn't allowed to have needs as a child. I was told by an overbearing father figure what my needs were and when they would be met, etc., etc. And so I think, you know, there's a number of things I think in people's histories that makes them believe that it's all about others. And so I journeyed out of that, and I'm yet to meet someone, either in my work who is genuinely altruistic. I just don't think it exists. But I don't think that's a bad thing, because I think you can be profoundly other focused, but you have to also be me focused. That pouring from the empty cup, etc. I think that holds true. But you can't be a fulfilled human being unless you are having your needs met. And so even the idea of pouring from an empty cup sounds as though you're not actually that important, but it's just you need to be full so that you can meet other people's needs. And that's not the truth of our reality. As human beings, we need to be deeply fulfilled ourselves. We have these longings, and when that's not met, it manifests in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways as we lash out and act out. And you see this all over the space, I think. Yeah, so I would always argue for the balance. I think we should be other focused, but I think we should be me focused. Yeah, I'll leave it at that for now.
Right, thanks, Steve. Yeah, it is a challenge, isn't it? Because I definitely think, you know, we have to look after ourselves, and you know, I've seen it time and time again. And you talk about altruistic people, and I've seen it time and time again with people who start these NGOs, and they believe it's all about the other person, but in essence it's about survival for themselves. You know, they're wanting people to fund them to go out and do what they believe is the good work. They're not actually capable of looking after themselves, but they're looking to look after other people. And you know, I've always looked at that, and I find it a very strange mentality, and maybe it's just because of where I am and where I think is why do you think you can help other people if you can't help yourself? Yeah, you know, I've just seen it so many times over the last 20 years with the different in networking environments and projects and so on that Trevor and I have been involved with. You know, so yeah, that's something that I've always wondered about. But you know, coming back to what everyone said, and I think, you know, it's been pretty much said around the group this morning, everything that needs to be said. But you know, I really feel you do have to look after yourself. You do have to know when to down tools. You've got to take time out and look after yourself. Otherwise, you do burn out. You know, a human is not a perpetual motion machine. You need to go through cycles of activity and rest and regeneration to be able to continue. And if you know, if you're not allowing yourself that time, something's going to break. You know, whether it's your health, physical or mental, whether it's your relationships, you know, something breaks. It always does, because it's just the body and the system's way of saying, hold on, guy, you've done too much now. And just take a step back, relook, refocus, rethink, and move again. And yeah, so I think we have to really become very self-aware in the process. And I think for me, that's what it's ultimately really about. If you are self-aware in terms of your physical state, your mental state, and things like that, you can start to recognize the signals early enough to actually say, well, okay, I need to time out. I need to do something. I need to go and run in the rain, or I need to go and you know, walk in the bush, or whatever it is that you need to do that clears your head and gives you that time and that space again, just to reset. You know, pause, press the reset button, and come back with fresh ideas, you know, fresh thinking, fresh energy in terms of moving forward again. But ultimately, yeah, if you're not giving, you're not going to get. So it's an interesting cycle. I think we all go through. So yeah, those are my thoughts. So Lee, I think back over to you to wrap it up and see if you can come up with another interesting topic for tomorrow, unless anybody else would like to put their hand up and suggest something. Steve, yeah?
I just wanted to make another comment, if I might. Seeing as there's so few of us, we've got a little bit more airtime maybe to share around.
Sure.
Without wanting to sort of pick on you, Ivan, but just you use the phrase like we have to, you know, so that's not aimed at you, but I think people in general. I find one of the hardest things to do when I'm working with a couple where there is one person who is living a very sort of passive aggressive altruistic expression
in the relationship. And I see it most often in couples because it just seems to manifest there quite often. To get them to express that I want to look after myself rather than have to. And I find it a really interesting phenomenon that globally, especially in the sort of Western mindset, more and more we talk an individual life and it's about me and my needs, etc., etc. But we don't actually live that, because we live these sort of apologetic have to statements of, well, I actually have to take a holiday now. And it's as if we can't look after ourselves before we're falling apart, and we have to apologize and go, well, actually, I now need to meet my own needs. Does everyone mind if I take 5, or if I have a week away, or whatever? And I think it's a very mature, and I think it values yourself well when you're able to say statements like, well, I want to look after myself rather than I have to, that, oh, well, I can't be productive unless I keep looking after myself. It's just, I find that a very sad statement, because there should be joy and freedom and peace in looking after ourselves and being good to ourselves. And it's not that we have to steal those moments, I think, from this great sort of productive machine. And I mean, I look forward to that in myself, because I'm not there yet. I also want to be able to say of myself, yeah, I want to look after myself. I desire to. I see myself as worth looking after, rather than having to steal 5 minutes here and there so I don't stab people in traffic. So anyway, that was just a thought that was triggered when you said that. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. I feel duly chastised. So, yeah. Yeah, no, but
I had a need to chastise you. There we go. Thank you, Ivan.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, no, but you're 100% correct, and it's interesting how the semantics of the language have driven us into this apologetic state, isn't it? I mean, and I think we get caught up in those elements. So yeah, you just have to become self-aware, Steve. That's here you go. So Lee, over to you.
Well, thanks, Steve, because that really just solidified what I was thinking maybe we could talk about tomorrow. And that is self-esteem. So what is it? One of the things that I've done in my history, and will probably do again, is run negotiation programs specifically for women. I've run many negotiation courses, but we designed one that was specific for women because women have a history of not negotiating well, partly because they haven't really had many role models and are relatively new in the business environment. And our tendency, and it's a generalization, but our tendency is to be grateful for what we get, because, we are lucky that we've got this job, or we've got the salary, or and so glad that we've been given this opportunity. And so we'll take what we're given rather than see that there's an opportunity for us to get more, that we deserve more. And that's the key thing. So we actually start this negotiation course with self-talk, and what is it that you're saying to yourself that tells you and the world that you are amazing, that you are beautiful, that you have everything that you need to make it happen in your life. And so let's talk about self-esteem tomorrow, and what does it take to have that esteem that says that when you look in the mirror, you say, hey, I like you. You're a good person. I think you're amazing. Let's do that.
Great. Thanks, Lee. So, folks, please look after your esteemed selves over the rest of the day, and we'll talk about your egos tomorrow morning. Have a great one, and we'll see you then. Go on.